It's our last show of the season, but it's a good one. We'll break down the Super Bowl, Rams versus Bengals, as we prepare a cash and GPP lineup on DraftKings Showdown Captain Slate, and it's coming up next. Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Lee.
And I'm Gary Kurtzman, sitting in for Michael Wiley.
If you guys don't know it, Gary is co-founder of this channel and has appeared on over 150 videos. And Gary, it's good to have you back.
Oh, Eric, it is great to be back. And before we get into the meat of this show, which is picking the cash and GPP lineups, I want to point out to the viewer, it's really important if you plan on betting in either cash or GPP, watch the Captain Showdown strategy show that Eric and I put together a few years ago. I'm pointing to the top of the screen. You can see the link there. We've also put the link in the show description. And if you want to maximize your potential of winning, Eric, the viewers really need to watch this show.
Absolutely. And we ask you to do two things real quick. If you haven't yet, please smash that red subscriber button. It lets us, and more importantly, the YouTube algorithm know that you appreciate our content. And it also lets you know when we will start filming in the preseason for the 2022-2023 NFL season. And on that note, the second thing, please go into the YouTube comment section and tell us what content that we have provided in the past that you really like and what new content you want us to consider for next season. All right, Gary, I cannot wait. Let's present this cash and GPP lineup.
And they have 6 flex positions. That means you can organize your lineup with quite literally any 6 players you like, just with a couple of constraints. One is, of course, you have a budget. The budget is $50,000. You can't go over that. And the other constraint is there's a little bit of a twist. You can see there's 5 flex players and a little crown icon there at the top of the lineup. That's for the captain's position. That is worth 1.5 times more points. So any player that you put in the captain's position is worth 1.5 times the points that he would normally score in a game. But of course, it comes with a catch, as it always does. He costs 1.5 times more salary. So Eric, there's some strategy involved here.
Yeah, there's a lot. And as opposed to FanDuel, a couple of key differences with DraftKings that kind of makes wide receivers at least a little bit more palatable in key positions. One is it's a full PPR. Now, normally we don't like the volatility for cash games of wide receivers, but it's a full PPR. So it helps for that floor as long as he gets a decent number of receptions. And as you said, 1.5 times the salary, it could pay dividends to pay down some because it opens up lots of opportunities in your other flex spots. So I've sort of given you guys hints who we might go for at wide receiver, someone we can pay down, who might catch some passes. Gary, I think I teed it up for you.
Did you tee it up for me, Eric? I feel like whatever thunder was in the skies, you've stolen away. You know, folks, T. Higgins is the moneymaker for the flex position. Now, before anybody reacts, I just want to put it out there, Eric, for the home viewer. I get that T. Higgins is Joe Burrow's second option. I understand. I watch football more than the next guy. I understand Jamar Chase is on the team and he is the most talented and has the most targets and the most yards and the most touchdowns for Cincinnati this season. Look, here's the deal. Long story short, first of all, we love a Cincinnati receiver rather than a Ram receiver in the flex position. The story for the game, Eric's going to go into it a little more. It's going to be a shootout through the air, but Cincy is going to be playing from behind. So their receivers are likely to get more targets than Rams. You want the opportunity in the flex position. Why not Jamar Chase? For the simple fact that he will be shadowed all game by Jalen Ramsey. That will open up opportunities for the second and third, level receivers for Cincinnati. And Eric, I love T. Higgins. I don't want to go too long about him, but the fact of the matter is you saw what he did in the championship game. You saw the fact that he had 9 targets, 6 receptions, over 100 yards. He got red zone look, did not get a touchdown, but he gets red zone look, second to Jamar Chase. Basically, he's second to Jamar Chase in everything. But the yardage and the targets have been over the course of the playoffs very close to Jamar Chase, but you get to pay down significantly. He's a much better value, Eric. That's what you're looking for in the cash games. T. Higgins is my guy.
Yeah, I really love T. Higgins in the Super Bowl for so many reasons, many of which you've already mentioned. But I like the fact that the Rams, I think, will dominate on the defensive line against Cincinnati's O-line. And because of that, I don't think Burrow's going to have a lot of time to throw. So I think they're going to look for the shorter passes, and that is going to be in T. Higgins' range. And let's not forget, and I'll even show people if they don't believe me, C.J. Uzomah has been a huge role in this particular offense, especially in the playoff run. He got hurt early in the last game, so don't factor that. Look at this: 8 targets, 6 targets, 6 targets, 7 targets. He's most likely not going to play, folks. And I don't think Drew Sample is going to match that production. It's got to go somewhere else. And I think T. Higgins is going to provide that. And then finally, everything you said, Gary, I want to look at the captain spot. Folks that are like, I got to have Cooper Kupp. I got to have Cooper Kupp. You're saving $6,000 in the captain spot off Cooper Kupp. You mentioned Jamar Chase, over $4,000 savings. So, a guy that you think it might be a little bit of a risk, I just don't see the risk of having him in the captain spot.
Yeah, great bargain, great value. And remember, this is a cash lineup. That's what you want. You want the best values for the position. Love T. Higgins.
Okay, Gary, we talked about that in our Showdown Slate show, that in general, when you have playing cash, if you can get both quarterbacks in the game, that is a major boost in cash because they have such a high floor. And as long as they're not really overpriced, they're not. So look what we can do. Because we saved money, not in the flex, because we saved money on T. Higgins for just a little over $10,000, we can get Matthew Stafford, not Jamar Chase. Get out of there, Jamar. I know you want to be on the team, trying to sneak in, and Joe Burrow. That's just in general. But in this game, Gary, I love the concept of being able to get Matthew Stafford and Joe Burrow because both the Rams and the Bengals do a better job against the run than the pass. And I think we kind of gave it away when we talked about T. Higgins. I think this is going to be a game where you're going to see a lot of passing. The NFL is a passing league, but in this game, I think they're really going to rely on the pass.
Absolutely. I mean, let's face it, the stats don't lie, Eric. Both teams are top 10. In fact, top 7 when it comes to passing offense, very strong passing offenses, and they are both in the bottom 10 in passing defenses. This game has all the markings of a shootout through the air. Love the fact that we got both quarterbacks, so we get the entire 100% piece of that aerial action.
The other reason I love having quarterbacks, they can't be phased out of the game. It's so easy to take a wide receiver out of the game, double team them, but you can't take a quarterback out of the game, Gary. So we'll get a good floor from both of these. All right, so we have little over 17,000 for our last 3 spots. So it got to be a little economical here, Gary. What do you got for us next?
Well, I'll tell you, we've been talking about Stafford and Burrow and the passing games. And Eric, I want some more piece of that action. You got to spread it around a little bit, right? Because, of course, this is not GPP where you try and get the stacks to get the high ceiling. We want the high floor, which means you spread around the passing game a little bit. But I am going to start with Odell Beckham Jr. Now, I love Cooper Kupp as much as the next guy at 11,600, but let's face it, for all the reasons we talked about, including the fact that we only had 11,000 something hundred left, you can't afford Cooper Kupp. But Odell Beckham Jr. will shine in this game. Why do I say that? First of all, take a look at his production over the last game in the Niners, and that's a team with a strong pass rush. 9 receptions, 11 targets, 9 receptions, over 100 yards. red zone targets as well, although not a touchdown in that particular game. Touchdowns were hard to come by. But the fact of the matter is, against the Niners, the Rams found a way to scheme their offensive line to give Stafford enough time to get Beckham down the field for some big games. That's going to be all the more easier against Cincinnati, who doesn't get more than 3 sacks a game. They managed to hit that high mark against Kansas City, much to the surprise of many, but they are not the sacking defensive line that the 49ers or most of the other opponents that the Rams have played. Odell Beckham Jr. is going to have all kinds of time, and he's proven over the last month and a half, he still has all-world talent. Eric, I love Odell Beckham Jr. specifically against this defense. He's shown that he can do it over the past month, and he's a great value at 8,400. Love him in that slot.
You just watch him. You watch the game. He is getting more and more confident in this offense, and Stafford is getting more and more confidence in him. So really like that we're able to get Odell Beckham. I think he has a tremendous floor given his price on DraftKings.
Absolutely.
All right. So we are down to $8,800, Gary, to spend.
I think you're telling me to save a little money. I'm getting the signal. You're telepathically saying, whoa, we're good. Don't leave me with the last spot with only $2,000, please. Eric, you know who's going to be a factor in this game? Not Tyler Higbee, because the assumption as of right now, I just want to point out to the viewers, we are filming 8 days prior to the Super Bowl. So the assumption right now from the Rams' own coaching staff is that Tyler Higbee will not play. As everybody knows, he sustained a rather serious knee injury and was out for most of the last game. So out with Tyler Higbee, but in with Blanton. And what I don't think will happen is that the Rams will phase out the tight end position. Why? Because the Cincinnati Bengals are prone to giving up the 6, 7, 8 yard gain over the middle. That can either be Cooper Kupp, but Cooper Kupp in the slot position tends to run a little more vertical routes than the tight end does. It's interesting the way the Rams run their offense. So if you want the 5 yard over the middle, it's either going to be Cam Akers or Kendall Blanton. And since it has previously been Higbee, I am assuming that Blanton is going to take over that role because he showed us he can do it against San Francisco. 5 catches, 57 yards, not a world beater. I'm not pretending that it is, but if I can get 5 catches, 57 yards, which is just about a season average for the tight end position for the Rams. Oh, Eric, at 4,600, just that production alone is a bargain, and I love it.
He's too cheap. He's simply too cheap. So I love this pick. I'll talk in a little minute what we might have to do as far as pivoting if Higbee somehow does play. But okay, you've left me $4,200, Gary.
Where's home, Eric?
You just left me. That's all you left me. I can barely get a real NFL player. Maybe I'll just
give me a sample of the players.
Yes, you read me like a book when I was setting up. I love it. Yes, I can sample it. Let's sample with Drew's sample. Okay, it's about the tight ends, folks. We already talked about how CJ Uzomah did not, looks like he's not going to play, and how much he has been involved in the offense for Cincinnati. Once again, what we're trying to do is we're attacking the passing game. That's where we see both teams having more success. And Drew Sample, again, I did say that I do not think that he's going to match what CJ Uzomah usually does, right? But he's going to give you something. And for only $4,200, I do like this particular play. I do want to comment a little bit about, we use all our salary here, which is perfectly fine in a cash game. We're not worrying about differentiating our lineup in cash. So using all your salary is perfectly fine. Now, what I would say is, well, what you might respond is, hey, Eric, what happens if Higbee or Uzomah plays? What you going to do then? Because we can't just pivot to those guys, because we don't have the salary, because both Usama relative to Sample and Higbee relative to Blanton are $200 more. So Gary, I think we can say that if Higbee and Usama are active, I don't want to start Sample or Blanton. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. I'd be a little disappointed, actually, if that's the case. Not to seem unseemly and wanting players to continue to get injured, but boy, at $4,200 and $4,600, they're talk about no risk. All you need is for these guys to have a few catches in the game, and they've already earned their value. So, boy, let's talk about what happens if Higbee or Uzomah does play the game. But I think we're all, for the purposes of this lineup, crossing our fingers that we can stick with what we got.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk a little about game script. It sounds like both you and I think the Rams are going to win. The lines makers think the Rams are going to win. They are favored by 4. They have an implied total of 26. They're home. All the ingredients set for Matt Gay, their kicker, to have a coming out party on the Super Bowl, Gary. He's a great kicker. He has a strong leg. Look what he's done just in the playoffs. He's provided a nice floor. Let me go to that. In that. So I think that you could pivot to him. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, my thoughts are he's probably the next best option. I'm not excited about Matt Gay. I'm not going to lie to the viewer on that one, but he is a good value. And the fact of the matter is, I'm very excited about Stafford and Burrow and Beckham and Higgins. They're the players who are going to win it for you, and we're keeping them in the lineup. That's the key here. And frankly, you could start to think about, well, do we somehow pivot off, Higgins and go to the third option for Cincy, Tyler Boyd, or do we pivot off of Beckham and go to the third, or let's face it, really fourth option for the Rams, which is Van Jefferson? But if you take a look at the performances of those players in the playoffs and in the second half of the regular season, it's very underwhelming, and their prices don't quite reflect that. They're not cheap enough where I think that they're any kind of value that Beckham is or Higgins are. So I'd be less excited to pivot to that, and that's what drives us to pivoting to the Rams kicker instead. So I like that strategy, not pretending super excited about Gay, but am super excited about the lineup as a whole to get us to where we need to be.
All right. So, Gary, let's go on to our GPP lineup.
So, Eric, of course, for the GPP lineup, we don't want the high floor consistency like a catch lineup. We want the high volatility, high ceiling. Who's going to absolutely blow up in this game? Eric, you don't have to overthink this. Cooper Kupp deserves, he requires, it is almost mandated that you put him in the captain's position. I want 1.5 times all the points you're going to get with Stafford to Kupp. We haven't seen this prolific a receiver since Stafford to Megatron. Eric, he averages, for God's sakes, 120 yards and a full touchdown a game. But better yet, he has gotten over 31 fantasy points in literally half the game. If he can just do that, he is well worth the $17,400 price. And Eric, 3 times he's gone over 40 points. And I see this as a possible game for him to get 40 or more points, because the Cincinnati lineup does not have a shutdown corner, and they have a bottom 10 pass defense. Cooper Kupp is going to shred. Stafford to Kupp is going to be a great connection. I want Cooper Kupp in the captain's chair, and I want me some Matthew Stafford in the flex position for all the reasons that we just talked about. Bottom 10 pass defense, very little in the way of pass rush. Stafford's going to have all kinds of time to look for Kupp over the middle short, over the middle medium. Kupp has proven that he can do the rest to get in the end zone. Love this stack.
Yeah, Gary, as a former baseball catcher, when we did the cash lineup, I did feel a little unprotected without a Kupp. Now we got him back in the lineup, and I am so excited that we can have it in the lineup, because people forget at the ceiling that this guy can have. He can completely go off. If you got a wide receiver, especially one as good as Kupp, in your captain spot, you got to have it with a quarterback and his quarterback in one of the flex spots for correlation. Remember, we need correlation in our lineup. And the other correlation that we talk about on NFL Master Class is running it back with the opposing wide receiver, especially in a situation where we think passing is going to be so heavily. We already talked about it in the cash lineup that both defenses do better against the run than the pass. So, Gary, can you remind me, who will Jalen Ramsey likely lock in on defense?
Oh, that would be the all-star, all-pro Jamar Chase. He'll be chasing him around the field all day long, Eric.
All right. So I'll avoid Ramsey and pick the next two best weapons on offense. That is T. Higgins, who was our in the captain spot in our cash game, and Tyler Boyd. Both guys, I think, are really lined up to see a good amount of action. Again, full PPR. So glad to get both of them in the lineup. And DraftKings is basically giving Boyd away for free at $5,400.
And that's a little surprising. First of all, Higgins is a great value too. It's $7,600. And don't forget, Higgins has just a couple less targets per game than Chase over the last month, including, of course, the playoffs. He has got a high ceiling. Of course, just in the last game against Kansas City, he went over 100 yards, got red zone looks, did not get a touchdown, but he gets the red zone targets. And Eric, he's proven to go over 100 yards. Love your T. Higgins pick. And as for Boyd, I love that. Just get as much share of the Cincinnati passing game, because let's face it, Burrow is going to be passing at least 40 times in this game. They're going to be playing from behind against a bottom 10 pass defense. So we want to get as much of that action as possible. So love Boyd at a ridiculously low price of $5,400. Does not have to do a super ton to more than justify that price. But now, of course, we're in a tiny bit of a bind because we only have $8,800 left and we have two more players to go. As of the day of this filming, neither coach expects, so they would be the expert here, neither coach expects Higbee or Uzomah to play. Eric, Sample and Blanton are so ridiculously cheap. $4,600 and $4,200. Eric, what I love about these guys is that both of them get 2 or 3 red zone looks per game, touchdown looks per game. All that's required for this to blow up in a good way, that's what you want, right, is for just one time out of that 2 and 3 targets for either player, just one time for that to be converted into a touchdown, and you have way more than justified your $8,800 for the two positions. Love it. And we're going to get 5 or 6 bites at that apple. All we need is one. That's why I love the tight end position. Way cheap, high ceiling.
So for GPP, we really want to tell a story with this lineup. And the story we're telling by putting Cooper Kupp in the lineup is Cooper Kupp's going to have a monster game. And obviously that means Stafford's going to have a good game. But that also means Cincinnati is going to have to play catch up. And to get 3 of their offensive weapons in the passing game and avoiding either of the guys on Jalen Ramsey, I really like this lineup's ceiling. Now, I want to point something out in fairness. We use all our money. So especially since we put this lineup out on the internet, there's a possibility, Gary, that a lot of others will use this particular lineup as well. So we do run the risk of chopping the pot. If that bothers you, we think this is just an excellent place to start. So if there's another guy you want to shift out and shift in a cheaper guy, so you leave $400, $500, $1,000 on the table, then you're starting to have more of a unique lineup. But I love this, at least as a starting point for GPP.
Absolutely. Again, love the high ceiling, especially with the story that both teams, top 10 pass offense, bottom 10 pass defense. Eric, the story is this is going to be an aerial shootout, and we have taken advantage of it.
Gary, it was great to have you on the show. And I'd like to not only thank you for filling in for Michael, but thank our audience. It was another great year. We're going to go on vacation for a little bit. But please, as I said before, smash the subscribe button before you head out. And we'll look forward to seeing you in August with some great preseason content. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you later this year.
See you then.
Just when you think this show is terrible, something wonderful happens.
What?
It ends.